We've got two briefings this afternoon, followed by a break and then a third around health and safety. The first one is Upper Selwyn Huts, followed by Tā Te Tima update. So thank you, Tim and team, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Tim. Afternoon. Yeah, first, I need to give you a bit of an update. We've got to with the Upper Selwyn Huts. Like welcome from Jacobs here has been supporting the project and has also been involved in a number of one-on-ones down the lake. Sarah's put together a bit of a presentation. I'll just pass over here to go through it. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah. Kia ora, so I'm here to give an update on the Upper Selwyn Huts engagement process, as Tim mentioned just then. Provided a bit of a background here, and by way of background, we know that the huts were constructed in the 1880s and used recreationally until more recently. The Kennedy earthquakes accelerated the number of people living here as their place of residence. The land is blockland and we administer it with a licence to occupy. There have been conversations in recent times related to the wastewater options for the settlement, and in 2019 a determination made that the licences and renewals are short-term and for a finite period. There are many safety concerns related to the huts, including the design not set up for safe residency with many huts located close to each other, challenges with sea level and groundwater concerns, and expectations around increased rural use impacting access and risks to associated services. There are also plans in place for the other Te Wahura lakeside communities, Rain Park Huts and Lower Selwyn Huts. In July of this year, Council made the decision to work through consultation and engagement with the community. The purpose of the briefing is to update you on what we have done and what we have heard from the authority on this matter to date. There are no recommendations at this stage, as we are partway through the process. With discuss and communicating and engaging with this group, we've done some research on the makeup of the community in the Upper Selwyn Huts. This has helped us to develop a picture of the community to assist engagement and to allow us the checks and balances around making sure that we have heard all areas of the community voice. As with any Statistics New Zealand data, it's important to note that this represents a point in time and may not be complete as there are no limitations to census information. What we do for sure is that there are 96 properties across 7 streets, and of these we know anecdotally that 12 are holiday homes. Of the 96 houses, 79 of these are owned by an individual, while 7 properties are owned, or 7 individuals own 2 or more properties. Within the makeup of the community itself, the median age is 59.3, which is considerably older than that, the Selwyn district average of 37. 33% of the population is between the ages of 60 and 75, with a male-female split that is fairly even. The community is predominantly European, and 72% have a qualification, with 59% not in work. Useful observation is the number of single people in the community, as if alongside the other demographic information provides insight into the support structures within the community and the likely importance of the community and lifestyle for these individuals. This information also provides background to guide decision making as we look at options within this process. In terms of engagement activity, we've engaged both Jacobs and Many Solutions to assist with this initial engagement work, which will steer consultation. The first official meeting as part of this engagement took place on the evening of the 28th of August at the Soldiers Memorial Hall on Bays Road, which is located a short drive from the house. This session was an opportunity to set the scene in terms of how the process will work, what the expectations are of both groups, and to work through what the community concerns are. The sessions are facilitated by an independent facilitation specialist, Chris Minnie. Chris has expertise in engagement activity, having worked on various projects, including coastal hazards adaptation planning with Christchurch City Council, and is an engagement advisor for the Royal Commission into the terrorist attacks on the Christchurch mosques. We today provide subject matter expertise on managed retreat, having worked with the Huanui District Council with their coastal communities in Gore Bay, Amberley Beach, Leithfield Beach, Clovelly and Marina. Working towards developing a dynamic adaptive planning pathway so that each settlement could adapt to sea level rise and working through the effects and impacts on the communities. Since the initial meeting, we had a further community meeting, which I'll detail further in the next slide. There was an Upper Selwyn Huts committee, and we connected in with this group, and the team have attended 3 of the meetings. This group represents a portion of the community views, and we've also identified that some community members are unable to or uncomfortable in a group setting or do not feel represented by the community committee. So we have set up drop-in sessions for these individuals and have the website and email address for feedback and questions, which are both being well used. As I've mentioned, our first meeting was to set the theme, the direction and expectations of this process. Our most recent meeting worked through agreed priorities and trigger points, and what does the community value around their living environment, what are the climate change thresholds, and what hazards are there we need to discuss, and then subsequently what a trigger-based approach could look like from a managed retreat perspective. There was also a conversation starter on building inspections and what this could or should look like. Our remaining 2 meetings will be using the feedback from the first 2 sessions to guide conversations and giving more detail around trigger points or what retreat could look like if required. The final session will provide an opportunity to hear from scientists and river engineers on the flood risk, and it will be the last session for feedback before working on the statement of proposal to aid in consultation. Feedback has been grouped into the following themes, many of which won't come as a surprise. The community had concerns with the deed of licence as presented earlier in 2024. In particular, they've said they would like the word finite removed from the deed of licence and to remove the code of conduct. With respect to building inspections, there is concern around what form this will take. Each hut is licensed to occupy 202 square metres, but there is not a legally surveyed area as there is no title. The huts were constructed as fishermen's huts with permanent residence prohibited until recently. Until 2015, only 12 huts were permitted to be permanently occupied. In 2015, this was relaxed, and now all huts may be, and an inspection program has been proposed to ensure that the settlement is safe. What form these inspections should take began to be discussed in our most recent community meeting and will continue throughout the engagement process, and we have our building team connected into that. A new pipeline is currently being installed to connect the settlement to the Pines wastewater treatment plant. Wastewater pipes under the street are the original 1927 pipes presently. The community wished to have the project funded by the district-wide rate and the settlement be included as part of the district-wide rating scheme. Regarding settlement retreat, the community is keen to discuss what managed retreat might look like should the licence be confirmed to be fixed term. Discussion on this point was also begun last meeting and will continue through the engagement process. While the huts themselves are not currently directly exposed to sea level rise, they will be affected by rising groundwater levels and difficulties in opening the lake due to the increased sea levels. The groundwater hazard is currently poorly understood, although it is known that groundwater levels are high. Trigger points for retreat are being discussed based on climate change impacts and risk. Within the context of the risk and retreat conversations, the community acknowledged that there are some risks and is keen to work to understand what actions can be taken to mitigate those. Identifying these risks is also part of this. With respect to heritage status, the community have made it clear that they would like this settlement to be recognised by Heritage New Zealand and by the Selwyn District Council as a heritage site. The community have commissioned a heritage report, which is up for discussion in coming meetings. The engagement is for us to hear these concerns and to work through options on each topic. There have been communications made regarding any of those, and there won't be until we work through the statement of proposal. As well as the licence holders, so in parts there are other stakeholder groups we have been keeping connected to. The Department of Conservation is working through a concession process with the community in the Lower Selwyn Huts, which ties back to the Environment Act. Department of Conservation are the Crown body that owns the land in the Upper Selwyn Huts, so in our capacity as administrators, we are keeping them up to date with progress. The view remains that we administer the land. Green Huts removal is progressing as planned and everything is on track for next year. Te Tamotu Runa are also being kept up to date on progress with this engagement. With regards to timeline, this remains tight, but we are on track with the 2 remaining meetings being held late November and early December. The next step from there will be to develop the statement of proposal for the community to provide feedback on before working through consultation decision-making processes in time for a final decision intended for June 2025. So finally, just to summarise the next steps, we have 2 community meetings coming up, a meeting with the committee and a couple of drop-ins planned. We'll be working on a statement of proposal leading to a likely special consultative process around March next year with final decision-making in June. Between now and then, we'll arrange to keep this group updated. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Good to see the work that's gone on and the types of conversations that have been had and the breadth of them. I guess question for you, Monique, is using your experience in other places, are the types of things that have been raised here very similar? And are there any unique circumstances that we're facing that in your other conversations haven't come up?
A lot of the same themes are coming up. Obviously, there's a bit of it's a different demographic to what I've worked for in the past. They're quite a diverse population. You can't characterise them as all, in one bucket. So there's a raft of different social issues that need to be considered as well as part of this process. And quite a fear of being made homeless, and so I need to work through that and to be a bit careful and link that back to the housing shortage and a lot of concern that Selwyn has quite, what's the word? Doesn't have a lot of low value housing. So if they leave the huts, they're worried about where they could afford to be close to their employment or close to their family. So there's a few different issues, but lots that are quite similar, yes.
And you had, when you just came in and met with us, you talked about the other processes taking a couple of years or longer, and we're trying to do this in 8 months. How is that working okay? Like, is the different time frame throwing up some different things than what you might have otherwise expected given a longer time frame, or has it been helpful having it tighter?
There's pros and cons both ways. So another message that's coming through from the community is living in uncertainty is really hard. So running a really fast, quick process is helpful in that regards because they'll get a resolution faster. It is cramming quite a lot of technical information into quite a short space of time is the flip side of that. So we're asking the community to get their head around what thresholds and triggers look like in one meeting and then trying to get a decision on that in the next kind of meeting to move forward, or at least a kind of consensus or agreement. So it is pushing the community quite hard, and I do recognise that.
In the meetings, has there been much of a discussion about what's happening with other lakeside settlements? Well, on one of the slides here was some of the wider conversations that are happening, but for Green Park and Lower Selwyn Huts, has that come up within their own community, thinking about what's happening to others around the lake?
There was some discussion at the last meeting in one of the breakout groups I worked with about the tolerance of risk at the Lower Selwyn Huts and whether they should have a discussion with the Lower Selwyn Huts about how they manage that flood risk and whether they can live with it or what they can and can't live with. In terms of whether they should be treated the same or not, I think there's, speaking a little bit on behalf of the community here, but I think their view is that they're a different settlement and therefore a broad sweep isn't necessarily fair on them.
Yep. Cool, thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi, Nick. How many other settlements have you worked with? I understand you've done Huranui. Have you done any others? That's just a lead-in question, otherwise it's not the final.
I haven't done a lot of the engagements. I've worked with the Mount Waipid community, which was on natural hazards risk, so looked at earthquakes and landslides. I've been helping Paoa and Wellington City in terms of their setting up their adaptation processes, but we haven't got as far as the community engagement. And I got brought in about halfway through the Kapiti Coast project. But again, we weren't involved heavily in the engagement on that. It was the kind of behind the scenes planning that we did, and they led the engagement.
Right. Any of those, was compensation a part of the discussions?
For most of the projects, we haven't got that far. They've got as far as what the options are, because the options for some of those settlements are hard protection and soft protection and retreat. So there's a range that need to be considered. For Amberley Beach, obviously, we did talk about compensation. We looked there at the two approaches of whether they could go down a buyout route, and the decision was made that actually the houses are worth about 307,000, and therefore, what can you buy with 307,000 when you're in your 80s? Not a lot, and even in Huronui. So we looked at the land swap idea. The requirements from council was effectively that it needed to be more or less cost neutral to council. Council was willing to use their resources and their leveraging power to help get something off the ground, but they weren't necessarily willing to give a commit to a payout for people.
I haven't gone through the newly minted climate adaptation policy that's come out, which I'm sure you would be up to speed with that. But what does that state around compensation processes?
Are you talking about the inquiry into adaptation?
Yep.
It doesn't go a long way into covering that at this stage. There's been a lot of background work. There was an EDS report, Environmental Defence Society, that looked at various options, and then there's been a working group report on managed retreat that looked at various funding options. The inquiry off the top of my head says that some of this work is, they've been thinking about it and we need to keep thinking about it, but at this stage there's no flag from government that there's going to be funding for managed retreat.
If anyone else have anything they wanted to raise, Shane?
To some extent, thank you very much for the report and for the members of the public that are visiting today. I think you've got a very detailed report and some of the information here, very deep, precise, accurate data that you've presented. My question is it your assumption that the community feel adequately engaged?
Want me to take that? I think that's kind of still what we are trying to get a good grasp on. So that's where some of Sarah's demographic stats are really important for us. So we identified that we haven't spoken to a lot of those young families, for instance, and we're just starting to make some progress talking to them and what their needs are. So at the moment, we've spoken to a lot of people, but we don't understand who we're missing, and we know that often you miss the most vulnerable people in the community. So just trying to make sure we cover that off.
Thank you. Phil?
You mentioned about 7 of the owners own 2 or more properties. How many properties total are owned by in a multiple way? Okay, I'd be interested to know. You did answer now, but I'm interested to know. My question is that there's at least 14 properties of the 96 that are owned in a multiple way. Are we dealing with those people? How's the consultation going with those people who clearly have them as an investment versus people who actually live there? How's the consultation different between those two groups?
One of the things we're trying to ascertain through the engagement is what the interests of people are. So, we do know there are a number of properties, which Sarah will tell you in a minute, which are rented. So they are providing some commercial benefit to those people. And we know that on the flip side, there are some families who see it as a real privilege to have got to have their license and see it as a real stepping stone into owning a house or living pretty much very cheaply. So there's definitely two. Yeah, there's a broad spectrum of people in society. 17.
17. And so actually, you just 70. That's interesting. Of the remaining. Thank you. 79. How many are rented?
We don't have definitive stats on that yet, I don't think. So we know that there hasn't been an increase in rental, but we've asked a few people who have raised renting as a potential issue down there, and no one's been able to give us a clear, actually these 10 houses are rented. We've got, some rough estimates.
I guess one thing that the reason why I ask is that if someone's using it as for financial advantage, it's very different for someone who's in there for a lifestyle choice and enjoying the benefits of having a cheap place to live. And the follow-on question would be, of those rented, what's the rental market? Are they charging market rates, or if we don't have the data? I see Tim shaking his head, so that must mean.
No, I don't know.
So we don't have that data at this stage, but it is something that we could look to explore further.
I think as we go forward, it might be something that may become important later on. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Megan, online.
Yeah, kia ora. My role is Taumitu Runanga representative into council.
Megan, we just can't hear you. So just talk about something else and then we can adjust the volume here until we can hear you well.
Right. Okay. Well, let me know when you can hear me. In the meantime, I'll just keep talking, which you've asked other people to do and is very awkward, by the way.
Yeah. So carry on.
Okay, great. So I was just saying that I'm Taumitu Runanga's representative into council, and I wasn't aware that Taumitu was being engaged on this kaupapa. And I don't think in a public meeting it's appropriate to list names of who's actually you're engaging with Taumitu, but I would find it really helpful to know, even if just flick me an email and let me know who in Taumitu you're talking with. That would be really helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. We'll follow up on that with you. I guess the question to Sarah, you've been seeing our processes now over a number of years and been through the decisions. Tim, you've been here through many of them. The process that we're currently going through, can you just give us a bit of a, are we going to find a resolution compared to some of the other processes where it feels like we haven't been able to get to a space where there's general agreement of a direction?
It's difficult to say, Sam. I think there is a diverse range of views down at the huts. To be honest, I think it could be difficult to get to a view that is universally agreed upon. We'll get some parts of a proposal that perhaps people feel reasonably comfortable with, but I doubt if there's going to be a lot of agreement across the board for the end proposal. So it's going to be difficult. It's challenging. I don't know, Sarah, if you've got a view.
The only thing I guess I would add to that is looking back at the history of some of the communication that we've had with this community. It's been ad hoc, whereas the commitment was made earlier this year around engaging appropriately, and I believe we are doing that, and we are providing a lot of opportunity to have an open conversation with the community. So while there may be a sense of not getting everybody on the same page, there has been an opportunity to do that, and it has been consistent.
Can you just run us through the decision-making points and for us before, like you've said, June next year? What is that? Just run us through the time frame, the calendar between now and then.
Yeah, so we have 2 more meetings coming up, November, December. So then I guess the remaining days in December and early January we'll be putting together a statement of proposal and then coming back with a more complete timeline around what that consultation activity will look like and what the, I guess, special consultative process timeframes look like from there, with an aim to hitting that June 2025 date. So loosely at this stage looking at March for consulting more formally with the community.
Okay, so for us as a group, we're likely to hear more early in the new year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you for coming in today and presenting that to us. Great to have the update. Hey, Mr. Goodwin, welcome along. Thank you for the report in front of us. I'll hand the floor to you and take us through the next pieces of the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kia ora, councillors. So I'm just going to introduce Michelle Shields and Shane Reeves. So Michelle is going to talk about her extensive qualifications. She's an external consultant who's come in and support our team to interpret the range of results we've had. So as the CEO would have briefed you on numerous occasions, we've undertaken an engagement survey of our staff. It's something we've done as an organisation over a number of years. This is just a quick update on the score and the results from that engagement survey, so you get a bit of a feel for how the staff are feeling about our place, our work, and our connection to our community. Michelle's going to run through very quickly the survey, but it's a chance for you to ask any questions to build your understanding. So I'm going to pass over to Michelle.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Michelle Shields, and I'm 22 years here in Christchurch. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else in the world. But as you can tell, I'm American by birth. And so my focus has been in my graduate studies has been on human resource development and how we can create organizations where people thrive. I've been a member of organizational development initiatives, and over the last 5 years have focused a great deal in what is called employment or employee engagement. And I'll describe that in more detail in a few minutes. But I've worked with other councils in their engagement surveys, as well as healthcare, education, agriculture, and aviation. So it's a delight to be here today. And what I'm going to share with you is an overview of the results from the 2024 Tapena Employee Engagement Survey. Now, this is the third consecutive year that this survey has been run, and you might be interested to know that in Tereo, Tapena means to hoe or to turn the soil. And so really what we're looking for when we undertake an effort like this is to unearth what lies beneath and to better understand questions such as what level of engagement does a workforce at Salmon District Council have, and what do they feel at this point in time? How does engagement look across the organization as a whole? And what's the potential impact of engagement on ratepayer reputation? So from a business perspective, engagement isn't just a nice to have, it's really a must have, as the questions of engagement translate to successful recruitment and talent retention. It results in increased productivity as well as greater efficiency, all of which, of course, impact on financial performance for the organization. So how did we do in terms of participation? Well, looking at the level of response to the 2024 survey, which you can see on page 2 of your pack, there has been a really excellent response. I've never seen a response rate this high, to be honest. Salmon District Council leaders are really to be congratulated for this result. And you might ask, well, why does the response rate really matter? Well, the higher the response rate, the more confidence we can have that the results are reliable indicators of employee perceptions here at the organization. And how does it go in terms of comparison to other council organizations? Well, you can see, looking at the benchmark data of other local governments, the average response rate for other local governments is 67.9. And here at Salmon District Council, the response rate has a 25.4% higher return. So let's look at the overall results. Engagement is generally measured by 3 indices that ask respondents the degree to which they agree or strongly agree on 3 things. 1, that they would advocate for the organization as a great place to work.
2, the degree to which the Selwyn District Council motivates them to do their best work. 3, the degree of commitment they have to remain with the organization. So in general terms, we might ask, well, why do we want high engagement? Well, high engagement outcomes are a value chain that starts with leadership and ends with ratepayer satisfaction. Research by the Gallup organization and others have found that 70% of engagement is a result of the relationship one has with their manager. This in turn contributes to the level of commitment individuals feel to stay with the organization. And as engagement grows, employee retention grows. The greater the level of retention, the greater the level of institutional knowledge that exists. And with this comes the relationship that's formed with ratepayers over time. So in sum, the more ratepayers trust the assistance they're given, the better the Selwyn District Council's reputation is with the ratepayers. So overall, engagement this year is up by 1%. And you might ask, is that a good result? That it's gone up by just 1% in the last year could be a reflection of the degree of change the organization has been through. Improvements that come about as a result of these changes may take a while to have an impact on employee perceptions, and there may be a lag into when they will be felt. Now, this year in 2024, the Selwyn District Council has introduced a new method for measuring the inputs or drivers of engagement. And this is referred to as the People Score. It's comprised of 20 questions relating to leadership, performance development, organizational culture, people's day-to-day experience, and psychological well-being. In general, the higher the People Score, the more engaged people expect people are. Using this score allows the Selwyn District Council to compare their results with other local government organizations. And as you can see here on slide 4, as shown here, the People Score of 71% is 4% higher than that of other local government organizations, where the average score is 67%. So where should we be targeting? Well, 71%, which is good, targeting a 1 to 2% increase per year across these 20 questions would be a reasonable target. With each successive year, the challenge will become greater. And why should we care about employee experience? Well, despite the economic uncertainty, there's still quite stiff competition for talent in nearly every industry these days. And having a reputation for being a good employer can attract the right people to open positions, as well as keep your top performers. Next, let's look at the drivers of employee engagement. These are the top 10 highest rated items from the survey results. And of these, all 10 are in the 70s and show favorable perceptions. And all but one is above the benchmark to other local government organizations say 1. So what story do these 10 drivers tell? Well, in analyzing them taken together, Selwyn District Council is an organization where people feel connected to the organization and its reason for being, as indicated by item number 1. They understand how their work affects others and their ability to do their job. And number 7, that Selwyn District Council has a positive impact on the community. This is an organization whose employees feel secure in being themselves and respected for who they are, as represented by number 2, in that they feel comfortable being themselves at work, and number 5, in that they feel their values are respected. It's also an organization that does the basics really well, as represented by item 4, which shows strong agreement regarding the importance of health and safety. And finally, Selwyn District Council is an organization that is adapting to the contemporary expectations by employees of today, as reflected in item 10, where employees agree that the council cares about its well-being. So by doing these basics brilliantly, the Selwyn District Council offers a satisfying place of employment. And by providing a sense of purpose and connection for its people, it provides a work environment where people can thrive. Of course, there's always opportunities for growth and improvement. as shown on slide 6 with the 5 lowest rated items. 2 items, our council has a positive reputation with ratepayers, and good performance is managed well at our council. We're in the low 50%, or the Ask Your Team reported red zone, suggesting there may be areas of concern. One question we could ask is why do employees perceive ratings of ratepayers so low? We haven't measured engagement with other councils and in healthcare. I believe this is potentially a reflection of the disconnect or dissonance that people feel when they believe strongly about doing the very best for the community, but they feel they're unable to do so, and in some cases for reasons outside their control. We might also ask, what's the organization doing about poor performance? In my experience, this is nearly always one of the lowest rated items. 1, because it may not be evident to people what steps are being taken behind closed doors. And 2, because it may take a long time for perceptions of skills and attitudes to change. Finally, let's look at how the demographics of the survey may contribute to the results. Southern District Council is a very young organization in terms of both age and experience. There are 5 decades of workers, and with 42% of respondents being 36 to 55 years old. Similarly, 65% of employees have worked at the SDC for less than 2 years. And we could ask, does it matter that tenure is short? Well, yes, in terms of accrued institutional knowledge that results in expedient problem solving and decision making, it does. And how does age and tenure relate to other public service agencies? We're seeing a very similar generational shift, with the average age in public service trending downwards and the current average of 44 years for workers in this industry. And while job tenure for other local public organizations isn't known, some statistics from the late 90s suggest that women tend to stay in roles longer than men, and that a person could have as many as 5 different spans in their career over a lifetime. Now, this has probably changed since those years. So in sum, you can see that this is a young organization that may potentially be very open to new and different ways of working. So what's next? Well, at present, the executive leadership team at the Southern District Council are working with group managers and frontline leaders to understand the survey results and to identify areas for growth and improvement. It should be remembered, though, that it's just as important to build on what's working as it is to focus on gaps. In summary, what's working is the connection people feel to their team, the organization, and the community. What the Southern District Council provides is a supportive environment where people will thrive and will ensure a longevity that can lead to higher levels of productivity and employee satisfaction. Thank you.
So thank you for presenting that to us, and Sharon for being really transparent with where the organisation is at. This is the sort of information that we haven't been privy to before, and I think it's really shines a light on your leadership of the organisation and the transparency in which we operate with you as our leader, to be able to share that with the councillors and today in a public forum with our community as well. Thank you. A number of questions from the floor. Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks for coming in today. Just so you're up to date, this is my US election outfit.
Do you recognise?
Neutral. I have a couple of questions. So just trying to understand some of the wording in here. So when I first read the bit that talked about, so you mentioned engagement on ratepayer reputation. So I just wanted you to unpack what you mean by that. And that feeds into the other two, which is the statement, the SDC cares about the well-being of its people. Now that went down by -1%. I initially read that to be a little bit in line with the council's positive impact on the community, which is pretty static at 74%. So for me, it's about our council having a positive reputation with the ratepayers, which again is 52%, which is very low. Do those things all feed in together with slightly different, aspects to the questioning, and is there a bit of a solution for us as a council, because this is really low, and this as a councillor is probably our number one aspect, is the community, us engaging better with the community having faith that we're putting their needs first. Thank you.
Yes, so what I would say to that is, yes, it is all together. So it's a systems relationship there. And if I can remember accurately your first question pertaining to the relationship between ratepayer reputation and engagement. First of all, let's remind ourselves that the question was asking employees, how much do you agree that Selwyn District Council has a positive reputation with ratepayers? So it's not necessarily a reflection of the ratepayer sentiment. So, and that's where I feel, you know, if I'm unable to do my job to the best of my ability, and I feel quite strongly about delivering for the community, I think people will feel that and will say our reputation is not good. And so the relationship then to engagement is the questions around, am I motivated to do my very best work? And the answer is yes, people are quite motivated. So the more motivated I am, and the more I feel strongly that I want to do the very best, the more potentially I may feel that the reputation will suffer as a result. Now, your second question had to do with, you know, what can be done about it? And this is where I think the value chain, and coming back to some research that was done years ago by the Sears company, is that the retention of employees, and that's where I would probably focus. Retention of employees means that you're building up a base of knowledge in the organization about how to expediently solve problems and deliver results that ratepayers can be happy with. In addition, the Sears study highlighted the relationship that people develop with their ratepayers or with their customers in that instance. And so those two things in combination contribute to the ability then to increase your reputation. Now, where that chain starts again is with leadership. And so if you know, and I do have a general bias there because I'm a leadership development consultant, but my relationship with my manager drives my engagement with the organization, which drives the willingness to stay and build up a base of experience that ratepayers will benefit from.
Thank you. Shane.
Kia ora, Sam. Tēnei te mihi ki a koe, kia koutou. Excellent. I really appreciate it. I would really appreciate if we had the opportunity to share your notes, a summary of the notes. It's a fantastic TED talk. I really enjoyed the whole lot. Looking at the slides, the staff engagement, it's really comforting to know that Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the principles are woven into the customer satisfaction reports, which shows a good level of comfortability for those of multicultural nationalities, and that we provide that. I think the transformation that we're seeing, the transparency through committed leadership, is that we have now the opportunity to transform the public perception or the ratepayer perception through organisational change and satisfaction. So the question is, where have you seen that in other places where the satisfaction of the internal structure of staff have then changed the perception of the external, well, in this case, ratepayers, and generally, how long does that take?
Yeah, well, it's a difficult question because a lot of organizations don't generally look at those two side by side, even though they should, in terms of customer satisfaction or ratepayer satisfaction. Yes, but we don't always look at those two side by side. So I would encourage us to do that. And I believe in this organization, there is an attempt to do that, which is why we've included that question in the survey. We wanted to see how employees' perceptions differed from what the actual ratepayers report. And so there'll be an alignment that will happen there. In terms of where have I seen it, where it's actually had a big impact, while it was a small organization, I did some work last year with Clutha Health, and their results were extraordinarily high. I was really impressed with the results there. Now, I don't know for a fact that it improved the relationship, but certainly you can tell when you go into an organization if people want to be there or not. And of course, emotions are contagious. So if I convey to you that I'm not happy with my work, you are in kind potentially going to respond to me with a level of abrasiveness in your request. So it's a contagion effect.
Kia ora, love you.
Thanks for coming to speak to this. I made a note on my slides about looking at those figures on how many had been less than 2 years, and it's 65% of the ones who responded, which is, I wondered how that compared with similar businesses, and which from what you're talking about, it's quite unusual to have.
Yes, and I did try to go through the Stats New Zealand results around the average job tenure for public service employees, but I wasn't able to grasp that easily. But it is in keeping with general global trends around job tenure. And again, as well, it's an old statistic, 3 years for women and 2 years for men in rural is quite common. However, in New Zealand, we do find that employees tend to stay in roles much longer, although that has certainly been changing in the last few years.
And I suppose it also depends on the age of the employee. I know when I was younger and then moved from one job to another, and then it's easier when you've got families to stay with.
And what I think we'll see is because of the predominant age group, these are ages where they're raising families. If you're 36 to 55, you're probably raising a family, which means you're probably not as mobile as you might be otherwise.
What I would be interested to know is more back to Steve and Sharon is actually how much, like we've got casuals and such like, and because they would come under that figure, and to find out that sort of detail would be quite good as well to give an idea of, full-time versus part-time or whatever who are actually living. Thanks.
We're happy to do that, and we can certainly pull that information out. I think the only other point to that question, Councillor, I'd add is that I think we've been reflecting back to Council the significant growth that this organisation's been going through for numerous years, and we're in a catch-up phase as well. And so that's also reflected in the tenure because of the significant growth and the new skills and experience that we are bringing in. Certainly, because we've done a lot of work on job design and we've got job descriptions that are current and have been reviewed within the last 12 months across the board, I think you can also have some confidence that the skill set and the experience this organisation is able to attract off the back of our engagement and off the back of our employee brand. We are actually attracting a really great talent to our district. We're attracting from within, but we're also bringing skills and experience from outside.
Yeah, just to add a final note on that. So I did look at the level of hiring over the last year, and it was 13.5%.
Thanks, Sharon, for putting this together. I just want to pick up some of the stuff that Sam said too. One of the questions here is our council is a great place to work, 74%. I wonder if we were to look backwards, whether we have figures, because that's a pretty standard question to be asked in a survey. So even though the survey wouldn't have been done in the same regime, it was probably a very similar question that would have been asked last survey. Whether I don't know whether you were able to know what the previous answer was. And the next thing is that if you're sitting at 74% now, I've got some bad news. It's hard to get that next 76, 78, 80%.
Thanks, Phil. Look, you know me, I'm not one for looking back. This is about giving myself and my new exec team a benchmark as to where we are currently at, and you'll see that the questions have changed, and I think that that's really important. What I'm interested in is how we actually now move forward off this foundation. So forgive me, but I'm not going to go and look backwards. That is what that'll have been whatever it was. But what I'm really delighted is that we have we have a good foundation, a good understanding now, a good barometer, and it's been independently looked at and checked. So I think that that's really helpful, and we've got a significant programme of work underway to be able to identify and prioritise the areas where we're going to put our time and energy into those areas for improvement. And we won't be able to cover all of them. So if you went back to those slides on the areas and opportunities for improvement, we had a strategic day on Monday with our heads of departments. And actually what we talked through is, where are the key areas that we are going to collectively work on to start to drive some difference for our community, because we won't be able to cover off absolutely everything.
Great. And I know, yesterday in our public risk and audit meeting, we talked yesterday about some concerns about the pace and the amount of work that was raised in us yesterday. And then to see today that 74% of people say that the council is a great place to work with that great workload and with that great positive driving forward. That means that things are obviously going in the right direction, and any concerns raised yesterday can be set aside.
Thank you. Really appreciate you presenting that and for the work that's gone on to have the staff actually fill this out over the months that it's taken to do that. So well done, Shane and the team for all the reminders. And some of that is just because people wanted to be a part of filling it out too. So just acknowledge the great staff that we've got, and that for us as councillors and as the board that sit around our council, we often see only a handful of the staff that actually work for our organisation and have a lot of good interaction with the executive team that are here, and then a handful of others. But actually we've got staff right across the district who are working every day in our aquatic centres and community centres and libraries, and we don't see them day to day. So want to just acknowledge them as serving our community too. Did you want to finish with anything, Sharon?
You just hit the nail on the head of what I was going to say. Is I wanted to thank my team and thank my leaders in the organisation, because to get this level of engagement is phenomenal, and particularly to Denise's team and Denise's leaders, because that's where the largest portion of casual workers are, and that was a phenomenal undertaking. So thank you, and to Bob's team in terms of the level of engagement there, but across the board it was absolutely fantastic. But the hard work is now only beginning. We have our benchmark. It is now being able to progress, and we're very conscious of that, and we're certainly not going to rest on our laurels.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now that concludes this briefing. We have at 2:30 health and safety, psychological safety workshop, which will be held next door. So you're welcome to leave your stuff here, but we'll be in the